topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Draw me close to you, never let me go, and lay it all down again, to hear you say that I'm a friend.
Hey, the Almighty Creator desires a deep personal relationship with you. My name is James Robertson. I'm a researcher, publisher, and teacher regarding the matters and truths of the Almighty Creator, whose true name is Yah, the eternally self-existing. I've been actively serving him since 1993, over 32 years. If you're not actively serving Yah, then by default you're serving Satan. My objective is to show you how you can make a big difference on earth and qualify for a position of high esteem in heaven for eternity. It's important to understand that as a believer, just being good is not the point. It's relationship with Yah that counts. Without this, you will be in a very unpleasant place in heaven with no way out. My aim is to show you how to get close to Father. If you're a good person without a clear relationship with Yah, then you're in a spiritual no man's land and you will not enter heaven when you die. The Creator has said regarding unbelievers, why would I want someone to spend eternity with me when they do not believe I exist? Yah is calling everybody on the planet to be involved and serve him and help him to have victory over Satan. Fundamentally, we each need to learn to see things on earth from Yah's perspective. Please visit my website at www.endtimeissueministries.org or email me on james@endtimeissueministries.org for more information. Today we're going to look at the power and authority of living above sin. So the overview. In this article, I will share some extremely important truths that I learned by accident in 2010. That as a believer free of sin, one has massive power and authority over the demonic and satanic realm, and they cannot touch you. I'm going to go into this in quite a bit of detail. This is based on the article 24:12:11, the power and authority of living above sin. A few Bible verses to evidence that the forces of darkness cannot touch those that are free of sin. To confirm the principle, Luke 4:30, Yahushua, incorrectly Jesus, taken to throw off a cliff and walks through the crowd untouched. So Luke 4:28, all the people in the synagogue were furious when they heard this. They got up, drove him out of the town, and took him to the brow of the hill on which the town was built, in order to throw him off the cliff. But he walked right through the crowd and went on his way. Because Yahushua was free of sin, the forces of darkness could not touch him. This is so important, folks. People read the Bible and they don't understand what's really going on. You get this superficial description of what happened, bearing in mind that Luke is basing this on second-hand information. Luke was not there. And people read it and they think, oh, Yahushua, Jesus walked through the crowd. It's Jesus. No, it's a man just like you or me, free of sin. And because he's free of sin, the crowd can't touch him. So he allowed them to jostle him or whatever they did up to the brow of the hill to prove a point. And then he said, okay, that's enough. Turned around, walked through the crowd, and the crowd parted because his messengers, his angels, were guiding him. in the broader context, it's important to understand that later the crowd at Yehoshua's betrayal and execution were only able to seize him and have Yehoshua tortured and executed because Yehoshua accepted the situation and did not ask for protection. Remember that he said in Mattiyahu, incorrectly Matthew 26 verse 53, or do you think that I cannot now pray to my Father and he will provide me with more than 12 legions of messengers, angels? So again, you can get into saying, well, that's Jesus, and Jesus is special, and Jesus can call on 12 legions of messengers. And there's such an important point here, folks. If you fall into that trap, you don't realize that's available to you. Yeshua said, because I go to my Father, you can do greater works than I did. Every emissary, every apostle, and Yeshua, just to avoid confusion, Yeshua lived as an apostle, an emissary, and a spokesman, a prophet. Nothing more. Everything that Yeshua did, up to the point that he was executed, could have been done by any believer at that time. If they just got close to Father, filled with His Spirit, and understood their power and authority of living without sin. So there's a huge piece here, folks. And it's also important to understand that last few days before Yehoshua died, he went out of his way to upset the high priests and the scribes and the Pharisees, calling them whitewashed walls, overturning the tables of the money lenders in the temple, rebuking them to such an extent that they lost it and they called for his execution. If he just carried on peaceably out in the countryside, preaching, teaching, healing, whatever, they wouldn't have killed him. He went to Jerusalem to die, and he made that clear to his followers, but they didn't get it. So it's important to understand that any believer has at least a guardian messenger to protect them. And then, depending on where they stand with Father, they will have more messengers. Up to, as I say, an emissary who will have 12 legion of messengers. I have 12 legion of messengers, 12,000. Legion being 1,000. And you can call on those at any time. And their job is to protect you. Your guardian messenger, at the very least, is there to protect you. But the guardian messenger and the others are constrained by the sin in that person's life. Once one is free of sin, one's messengers can operate effectively. And I've talked at length in previous broadcasts about judgment in this life. The fact that Yah sits on a throne in a throne room, which is a judgment hall and a seat of judgment. And that Yeshua is the advocate, so he pleads for us. And the satanic are the prosecutors, the accusers. So if we have sin in our lives, your satanic messenger, if you're a believer, you have a satanic messenger following you and tracking your sin and your error all the time and reporting on it. So if you sin, if you go and commit adultery or something, forces of darkness will ask for a judgment against you, and if it's granted, then some bad things will happen to you, and your guardian messengers unable to do anything about it. In fact, under certain circumstances, Father will in fact charge your messengers to sort you out. In Proverbs 26 verse 2, a curse without cause does not alight. Like a sparrow in its flitting, like a swallow in its flying, So a curse without cause does not alight. A curse which has no legal basis will not touch the person it is directed against. And I'll say more about that in a moment. Folks, there are all sorts of people out there cursing believers. The stronger you become as a believer, the more impact you have, the worse the cursing will become. The answer to that is get free of sin. Because if you're free of sin, the curse cannot alight. It cannot touch you. And then Daniel, book of Daniel, chapter 3, verses 1 to 30. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego cast into the furnace of fire and delivered. The king demands his people to worship an idol. The 3 Hebrew men refuse. So the king has them cast into a furnace that is so hot that the people who throw them into the furnace die. But the 3 men have their bonds removed. I believe they're just burnt off. And they walk about free in the furnace. And the king says, "Look," he answered, "I see 4 men loose walking in the midst of the fire, and they're not hurt. And the form of the 4th is like the Son of God." 3 men were free of sin and in right standing with Yah. So how do you know that? It's kind of evident, isn't it? It's quite a big thing. Be thrown into a blast furnace or equivalent, which can melt steel, and you just walk around and chat, and somebody else joins you there. Folks, there's an element of imunah and an element of faith involved in what happened here. But there's a bigger piece about being free of sin. And these 3 men refused to sin. They refused to break the 2nd commandment, which is you shall have no idols. And death couldn't touch them. The 4th man in this case was the spirit being who became Yahushua in his capacity of Yah's second in command. And in this case, in his capacity of Yah, the eternally self-existing, the messenger of Yah, the eternally self-existing, the angel of the Lord. And the angel of the Lord in common English translations, which, as I say, is the messenger of Yah, the eternally self-existing, in each case is Yahushua, the spirit who became Yahushua. His name was not Yahushua at that stage. I don't know what his name was. I've never been told. To be honest, as I say that, I've never really asked. When Yah started the creative process, he created a spirit being to help him. And that spirit being was effectively his second in command, his chief operating officer, his aide-de-camp, whatever you want to call him, but he helped Yah throughout the creative process. And then when everything went awry with Satan and Adam and what have you, eventually Yah was looking for a way to turn the case situation around. Yeshua said, "I tell you what, I'll go to earth as a man and I'll live a life free of sin. And we can institute some covenant terms through Moshe, through Jeremiah, etc. And I will regain authority on the earth. And in exchange for that, I would like the highest throne in heaven." And Yah said, "Okay, that makes sense. Let's do it." I wasn't there. I'm not going to say guaranteed word for word that was the conversation, but that's roughly the way the conversation went. So that spirit was in the habit of coming to earth at key times with key people. He appeared to Hagar when she fled into the wilderness, and he told her to go back to her mistress. He appeared to Ishmael when Ishmael and Hagar were chased away. He appeared to Abraham, actually, to tell, and to Sarai, to tell them that they were going to have a son. And there are various other places where you encounter the angel of the Lord. the messenger of Yah. Then we read in Daniel chapter 6, verses 1 to 28. Daniel's cast into the den of lions and survives unscathed. The king gives instructions not to worship Yah. Daniel disobeys, is cast into the lion's den, but comes out alive the next day, untouched. Daniel said to the king, O king, live forever. My mighty one, incorrectly God, sent his messenger angel and shut the lion's mouth so that they have not hurt me. Also, O king, I have done no wrong before you. So there you see a hint that he's free of sin. Because Daniel was without sin, he was saved. And that's available to you, folks. If you live without sin, they can throw you in the lion's den and they won't touch you. Not sure I'd have the timidity, to whatever you want to call it, to test that out in practice, but that's my understanding. In 2 Kings 6:13 to 18, Elisha is surrounded by an army of messengers to protect him. Elisha and his servant are surrounded by an army. The servant fears, and then Elisha prayed, O Yah, the eternally self-existing, incorrectly the Lord, please open his eyes that he may see. And Yah, the eternally self-existing, opened the eyes of the young man, and he saw that the hills were full of horses and chariots of fire all around Elisha. There are other verses which further substantiate this. Repeated situations where Israel was in right standing with Yah, and their enemies were defeated for them. The basis of this is no sin equals no judgment, and I touched on this a minute ago. The article 2021-0701, the essence of my message concerning judgment in this life, discusses in detail the exact basis of judgment in this life, why and how bad things happen to true believers because of sin in their lives. In simple terms, Yah sits on the throne of judgment in the court of heaven, the court of judgment. Yeshua, our advocate, pleads for mitigation of sentence for young believers. Satanic messengers, the accusers of the brethren, bring charges against believers for sin. Where the sin is clear and there are no mitigating circumstances, Yah gives the judgment permitting the Satanic and Demonic Realm to cause harm to the believer in question. Such judgment is the only way the forces of darkness can touch a believer. See the first 3 chapters of the book of Job to see how judgment operates. In the first judgment of Job, he was guilty of sin. And in Job 3, you read that he says, that which I most feared had come upon me. In the second judgment, where he lost everything and he was afflicted with boils, etc., but his life was spared, he was guilty of pride, and you can read that in, I think it's Job chapter 29. So clearly, if there's no sin, there's no basis for accusation, and therefore no basis for judgment, and therefore the Satanic and Demonic Realm cannot touch such a believer or cause harm in any way. And what you'll notice about the case with Job specifically was that Yah drew the attention of Satan to Job. Have you considered my servant Job? And Satan responds, yes, but you built a hedge around him, I can't touch him. And Yah says, no, but he's in your hands. So what we understand is this is way back at the beginning, before Satan fully understood his legal position, that if he picked up that Job was in fear, he could give Job what he feared. And Job was offering sacrifices in fear in case his children had sinned. And so he opened the door for that attack. And then he was in pride and saying, yeah, look what a great guy I am, and I've got all of this. And I said, well, okay, we'll wake you up a bit and get rid of your pride. So pride's not a good thing to have, folks. Then from my side, and this is really the crux of the story of this broadcast, is my own personal experience that evidences and elaborates this. I discovered this principle practically in 2010. And I want to make it clear, folks, this is direct revelation through experience based on a series of things that happened to me in 2010 that I didn't really understand before this happened. So back a bit, in 2001, Yah called me to prepare to bring Satan before the court of heaven and have him sentenced to 1,000 years in the pit. Revelation chapter 20, verses 1 to 3. And as a consequence, I underwent a rigorous process to cleanse myself of all sin and spiritual defilement. See the book, ebook 2014-1101b, 7 components in drawing close to the Creator, and look at the section on cleansing. On the 3rd of May 2003, the Spirit of Yah came upon me, and I had Satan arrested, convened the court of heaven by the Spirit, read out the charges, had Satan sentenced to 1,000 years in the pit, and had him cast into the pit. I only had the authority to do this because I was free of sin. That means free of wrong names, not worshipping Jesus or worshipping Yeshua, not worshipping the Bible, and using the correct names, observing the correct Sabbaths, free of all legacy sins, etc. And by extension, free of all the sins of Islam and Judaism and everything else. I just knew that in order for Satan to go to the pit, I had to be free of sin. I didn't understand the broader ramifications that I'm going to share with you now. So because I'd learned to walk free of sin and I'd got rid of all the legacy bloodline curses, etc., I continued to walk free of sin, barring a very occasional slip-up, for which I was quickly judged and quickly repented. And I've lived with sin pretty much ever since. It's not that difficult. It just requires resolve and discipline. Judge me severely and correct me harshly. Note that I pray most days, Father, I ask you to judge me severely and correct me harshly, that I may serve you more perfectly. This is the one sure way that I know of to live without sin and correct quickly when you do slip. See the article 2012-1107, Yah, judge me severely. I also pray, show me the level of my present deception and how to correct it on a regular basis. I also have that statement on my website. It's in the conclusion of every email I send out. And I pray it regularly. And I've been praying it since I first prayed it in 1998. Got it from Rick Joyner in The Final Quest. And seemingly he didn't keep praying it. And I prayed it intermittently through to about 2010, when I started praying it regularly. And I've been praying it pretty regularly ever since then. And as I say, it's in my email signature, etc. So let's talk about 10,000 demons with no impact. Following sending Satan to the pit for 1,000 years, when I ministered deliverance to others, I would command the demons to go to the pit for 1,000 years. In 2010, I discovered that I was in error. I did not have the authority to send them to the pit for 1,000 years, and their crimes did not warrant such a harsh sentence. As a consequence, all the demons I'd cast out of others had come onto me. Turned out I was carrying over 10,000 demons, but they were not touching me. In fact, this is drawing the distinction between sin and error. So I was in error, but in that error, I was not sinning. I didn't have the authority to send them, so they didn't go. They just hopped onto me. And if you stop, and if I'd stopped and thought about it, if the pit for 1,000 years was a just sentence for Satan, who had done so much evil, then it was surely not suitable to send some little demon, some little human spirit, some ancestor spirit, who just sat on somebody and whispered in their ear and maybe got them to commit a couple of small sins, to send that demon to the pit for 1,000 years. It was unjust, inappropriate. I didn't think it through. glibly thought, well, I prayed for Satan to go to the pit for 1,000 years and he was sent there. I can just send anybody else to the pit. I didn't have the authority. And it's the sort of naivety that I've fallen into, and which pretty much everybody falls into if they're trying hard. I subsequently learned to minister deliverance, saying I speak to the demons of whatever, for example, fear, or cast out their categories or specific names sometimes. I cast you out, I tear you down, and command you to go where Father Yah sends you in the name of Yahushua. Father, I ask you to send your mighty warring messengers to bind, tear down, cast out, and send where you want to go the demons that I've named in the name of Yahushua. Then death curses and human sacrifices were powerless. At the same time, I discovered that there were about 190 death curses invoked against me, which were also not touching me. I was living life completely normally. So remember, curse without cause will not alight. There were also about 50 human sacrifices offered against me, mostly abortions, and they too were having no effect. From this experience, I realized that since I was free of sin, the Satanic and Demonic Realm had no hold on me. So just to recap, I'm sitting with over 10,000 demons. I've got over 190 death curses against me and over 50 human sacrifices offered against me. And I'm just carrying on with my life, completely oblivious until I meet this highly anointed prophetic lady who says to me, you're carrying over 10,000 demons, you've got over 190 death curses against you, and you've got over 50 human sacrifices against you. And she prays and cut it all off. For me, nothing changed. They were having no effect on me. And that's a profoundly significant fact in my life, to realize that. And then defeating one of the most powerful demons on the planet. Shortly after this, a powerfully anointed servant who I was associated with traveled to Zambia to minister. In fact, the same lady I just mentioned. When she got there, she was informed that the witch doctors had been drumming against her for weeks. The day after she arrived, she was suddenly taken mysteriously ill and died. Her two assistants prayed her back to life, but she started going again. As she went, she told them to phone me. They got me on the phone, and I took authority over the spirit that was killing Father's servant. She came back to life. Subsequently, she told me that the spirit that killed her was Moloch, one of the 7 demonic masterminds that rule the earth. So one of the 7 most powerful demons on the earth. And that as I came on the line and took authority, he said, I have to go now. You are more powerful than me. Again, evidencing the power and authority that is vested in a believer who's free of sin. So there I was on a mobile phone in my kitchen, over 1,000 miles away from this lady who was being killed by this demon. And I just bound the spirit in the name of Yeshua and told it to leave. And it left. Because I had, at that stage, as a believer free of sin, I had the authority of Yahushua. And I took authority in the name of Yahushua, and one of the 7 most powerful demons on the earth said, you're more powerful than me. Folks, that is serious stuff. It's so important to understand that once you come to this place of being free of sin, demons can't touch you, curses can't touch you, human sacrifices can't touch you, and powerful demons have to listen to you and submit to you. It's powerful stuff, folks. And that's how we're going to turn around the captivity of humankind in the days ahead. My challenge to you as a listener is to do what's required to get free of sin so that you can walk in this. Tear down principalities, powers, thrones, and dominions. Get to a place where you're moving in the same power and authority as Yahushua, healing the sick, raising the dead, walking on water, feeding 10,000, 5,000, whatever, doesn't matter. As many as you find. An ordinary person. I want to stress that if you had met me in person then, and in fact, if you met me today, you would find me a pretty unassuming and ordinary person. This power and authority stems from my standing with Yah as a servant free of sin, and has nothing to do with me as a human being in my own strength. This is important, folks. Don't look for true believers who are walking in authority to be walking around with a visible aura, visible halo, and stuff. They're just ordinary men and women going about their lives in service of Yah, and they're free of sin. You can't really see if somebody's free of sin. You might observe their life and say there's something different about them. It's only when you see them in a situation where they have to deal with this sort of stuff. And then the people cursing, being killed by returned curses. Further example. In 2013, 2014, I was living in the Docklands area of London in the United Kingdom. We were living across the river from the headquarters of the Satanist movement on Earth, and also the headquarters of the demonic masterminds in a town called Woolwich. See the article, Satan Rules the World Through the Leadership of Demonic Masterminds and Human Satan Servants for more information about the masterminds. But basically, in simple terms, once before he was sent to the pit, right way back, after Adam ate the fruit and gave authority on earth to Satan, and mankind started to degenerate. And after some years, there started to be unbelievers, people who never believed in Yah. And when they died, there was nowhere there for them to go, because Yah hadn't planned for there to be unbelievers. Yah had provided for different ranks in heaven for believers, but that was as far as it went. And so basically he said, well, I've got nowhere for them to go. They might as well just stay on earth. So if you die as an unbeliever, your human spirit just comes out of your body and you start wandering around as a disembodied spirit. Now, the first humans that died found themselves in that situation, and Satan said, this is interesting. Here's some human beings who can help me with my mission. And so he said, well, you come and work for me, and I'll make sure that you get rewarded. So they joined up. And very quickly, there were 7 of them in charge. And they stayed all along. They came through the flood on Ham, Noah's youngest son. They survived the flood on Ham, and they've continued to rule. And that's Molech and was Zeus, now Jesus, was Baal, now the Lord. And they rule. And when Satan was cast into the pit, suddenly these 7 powerful demons found themselves no one to report to. And they sort of wrestled backwards and forwards, and they said, this is no good, us arguing and fighting with ourselves. Let's concentrate on the human beings. So they've got a junta, whatever you want to call it, a committee that rules the earth. And they're in charge. So going back to my story about Woolwich and East London, we were praying, tearing down principalities, powers, thrones, and dominions, and I realized that we were being cursed. So I started to pray, Father, I cut off all curses that have been spoken against us, and where those curses have been spoken by people who understand what they're doing, I ask you to return the curses in the magnitude that you deem appropriate. After about a year, Father told me I could cease praying that prayer because those who had been cursing me were dead and their colleagues were too scared to curse me. I've not been cursed on a major basis since then. So again, there's this principle, folks. if you are free of sin and in right standing with Yah, not only can the forces of darkness not touch you, not only do you have authority over demons, you also have the authority to ask Yah to return those curses in the magnitude that he deems appropriate. And clearly, based on what I've just shared with you, it happens in a pretty serious fashion. In fact, the first time that I learned this was back in about 1997. I just got out of a very toxic marriage to a woman who'd betrayed me bitterly. And I was joined to a new lady that Yah brought into my life. And we realized that someone was cursing us. So we very simplistically got on our knees and said, Father, we're being cursed. And we don't really know what to do, but we ask you to return those curses 1,000-fold. The next day, my lady's ex-husband's mother, who was a practicing witch, was dead. 6 weeks later, her ex-husband was dead. And we realized that these were the people who'd been cursing us. So it's powerful, folks. We're not talking about the kiddies playing paddling pool here, folks. And then the Bible does not contradict this. In sharing the above, someone referred to 1 John 1:8-10. If we say that we have no sin, we deceive ourselves and the truth is not in us. If we confess our sins, he's faithful and just to forgive our sins and to cleanse us from all unrighteousness. If we say that we have not sinned, we make him a liar and his word is not in us. There's a difference between saying we have never sinned, which is inherently false, versus coming to a point where one is living free of sin. Confessing sin as soon as we become aware of it is a vital component. So if you are meticulous about dealing with sin in your life, there's a point at which you don't sin anymore. You're aware of it, you understand what it is, you don't do it. So it's silly and counterproductive to believe that people can't get free of sin. And it's one of the lies that religion teaches. And then Yahushua said we would do the same and greater works than he did in John or Yahuchanan 14:12. Most assuredly I say to you, he who believes in me, the works that I do, he will do also. And greater works than these will he do, because I go to my Father. Let that sink in. The works that I do, he will also do, and greater works than these he will do. He will heal the sick. He will raise the dead. He will walk on water. He will feed 5,000, etc. Turn water into wine, and so on. And she as well. Just as much, this is not a gender thing, folks. Just happens the way it's translated, he will do also, but it's just as applicable to women, as I found with that lady who ministered to me in 2010. Yeshua lived without sin. Therefore, it's entirely possible for us to live without sin once we've cleaned up our lives, as per the 7 components of drawing close to your document. If you go to the website, right in the top left-hand corner, home, there's a little triangle to the right of the word home. Hover over that. You'll get a list of 4 documents, one of which is 7 components of drawing close to Yah. You can download that as a PDF, print it out, put it into practice, and in a year or 2, you will be free of sin and close to Yah. Note that this requires that we strictly adhere to all of the 10 commandments and deal with all issues regarding names, misplaced esteem, and worship, including not worshipping Jesus or Muhammad or whoever. Do not worship the Bible or the Quran or whatever. Use the true names, observe the true Sabbaths, etc. See the article 2024-0806. Compliance with the commandments of Yah is necessary to live without sin. Note that a divided house is sin and will bring judgment and cause the house to fall, as discussed in previous articles. So in conclusion, Life free of sin is powerful. The ultimate lesson from everything that I've shared with you is that living life free of sin is powerful and is, I suggest, a necessary adjunct to truly serving Yah effectively and powerfully. And I'm advocating an extreme level of sanctification and set apartness. Folks, my message, as always, is not for the faint-hearted and the slipshod and the lazy. It's for people who are really serious about serving Yah. It's about people who are saying, you know what? I've got a revelation that there's life after death. I've got a revelation of the reality of the Creator. I've got a revelation that there's a reward for serving the Creator faithfully in this life. Therefore, I will do everything it takes to get as close to Yah in this life as I can, to serve Him as faithfully as I can, and to do the same and greater works to what Yeshua did. And if you are one of those people who is in a mind to say what I've just said, I would love to hear from you. I will coach you. I will mentor you. I will advise you. I will pray with you. I will pray for you and help you to get as close to Yah as you possibly decide to get close to Yah. So to wrap up, I'd like to ask you, what is the state of your relationship with the Almighty Creator? I'd like to ask you to critically examine where you are relative to Him today. Do you talk to Him constantly throughout the day and allow Him to lead you in every possible way? Do you worship Him at every opportunity? Have you clearly and unambiguously heard Him call you friend? If not, you're failing in your life purpose and you will be bitterly disappointed when you die. If you now come to belief, please pray along the following lines. Father Yah, I come to you in the name of Yahushua. I now believe that you exist. I confess my sin of unbelief and I repent of my unbelief and I ask you to forgive my sin. And I commit my life to you and I ask you to take me by the hand and lead me into deep relationship with you. I ask you to fill me with your spirit and to change me and to help me to become the person you want me to become. I ask you to help me find people who can help me and help me find books, websites, articles, and other resources that will help me. I ask you to show me what I can do to actively serve you and lead others to deep personal relationship with you. I thank you for saving me. There's a period of 8 days from sincerely coming to belief for the first time, during which there is extreme grace to help you. See the article, Critical Actions on First Belief, for actions you should take immediately. Drop me an email at james@endtimemissionministries.org so that I can help you, pray with you, counsel you, etc. Can't stress this enough, folks. I would really love to hear from you, and I would be delighted to help you on your journey. In closing, thank you for listening. Please send me your questions to james@endtimemissionministries.org. Please email me to join the mailing list at james@endtimemissionministries.org. If you decide to draw close to the Almighty, please let me know, and I'll connect with you by Zoom, Teams, emails, LinkedIn, Facebook, WhatsApp, or telephone so that I can help you with your journey. I hope to connect with you again next week when I will continue to explore how to become a friend of the Creator. Work with me to make a way for Yahushua to return in victory at the end of the millennium and make his enemies his footstool. Folks, in closing, it doesn't matter if you're rich or poor, thin or fat, tall or short, educated or uneducated, African, Asian, American, Indian, Caucasian, European, whatever. It doesn't matter if you're an outright Satanist. Father wants you to become his friend. He'll meet you wherever you are. Just say to him, Father, James Robertson says that I can become your friend. I choose to become your friend. Help me to get there. Get the article, 7 Components of Drawing Close, off the website. Read it and apply it. It's about 72 pages. It's a lot of material there. I've done everything that's in that document. It helped me to get to where I am with him. I encourage you to go for it. Yeah, he's loving, he's kind. He will forgive you whatever it is you've done up to this point in your life. And I'm talking here, even if you're a Satanist killer, Yah will redeem you and Yah will turn your life around if you let him. But you have to make the decision. You have to make the commitment. So, folks, I'm out of time. For those of you who've been with me for a while, I'm going to say good night, and you're going to drop off here, I'm sure. For those who are new to the channel on the first or second time, please stay on. I've got some information I'd like to share for you. So those who are dropping off, cheerio, have a great weekend, good week. In closing, who am I? James Robertson. I have a doctorate in engineering, and I'm a retired military commander. I now work as a management consultant. I have over 32 years' experience of actively seeking to draw close to the Almighty, following a dramatic encounter with him on the 12th of March 1993, when he spoke to me audibly in a locked room, and I knew for certain that he was real. In learning about Father, I applied my deep-seated aversion to failure, born out of an accident in early childhood, coupled to my engineering and military training of rigor in preventing failure, to my seeking of knowledge about Father. This journey led to numerous supernatural experiences, prayers answered, and clear communication with the Creator. It forms the basis for what I teach in these programs. See the video, Why Seek Relationship, for an overview of what I believe. Please visit my website at www.endtimeissueministries.org. ETI version of the Bible with correction of major translation errors is in the ETI Bible version page. For recordings of nearly all of the teachings broadcast so far, go to www.relationshipwithcreatorradio.com or search on Google for Relationship with Creator Radio. Transcripts are on the Transcripts of Broadcast page. Books with teachings from 1998 until May 2019 are on the Books for Printing page. I publish regular email articles. Email me on james@endtimeissueministries.org to be added to the list or to seek counsel or prayer or give me feedback. Visit the website and use the article keyword cloud, table of contents, article search, and Google search to locate the information you're looking for. Folks, that's it. My time is up. I'm going to say good night, and I look forward to seeing you on the program next week.
Father, I come to you, lifting up my hands. By your grace I stand, just because you love me. I know your favor.
Hi, I'm James Robertson. Has it ever occurred to you that because of the way... Hi, I'm James Robertson. Has it ever occurred to you that it is possible to live life free of sin, and that gives you considerable authority over the forces of darkness? If not, please listen to my broadcast on w4cy.com internet radio or talk4tv.com internet TV. Also visit my website at www.endtimeissueministries.org and www.relationshipwithcreatorradio.com for back issues of my broadcasts. Email me on james@endtimeissueministries.org to find out more. I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks so much.